If I show you the map of the world and ask you to point out the center of psychological horror, you'll choose Japan. From mangas to games to movies and anime, they are masters of this art. So let's talk about one of them, Perfect Blue. Japanese horror shows have this thorn in them. It takes so damn long for its engine to rile up. I remember me and my friends decided to watch Ringu, the Japanese version of Ring. Well, actually, Ring is the American version of. So we decided to watch it at night. And after 45 minutes, everybody had fallen asleep. This show is peak psychological horror, and one of the most important elements of a great horror story is a layer of distraction. In great horror shows, there is always this scene which the camera gets closer and closer. The music starts riling up, but all of a sudden, nothing happens. But in a psychological horror, we are looking at narrative distractions. Perfect Blue's distraction is parasocial relationships. The stalker who falls in love with the image of Mima, but now she's trying to change that up. But he won't let that happen, and he will take it to the extreme. So, what is the core of the show? Before we get to that, I want to talk about the shedding good image part. This show shows you how someone, and especially an actress, can get pressured into stuff she doesn't want to do. And she gets pressured into a fake rape scene. I just had to skip it, but then I was like, what is the gimmick anyway? So I went back and watched it and got scarred for life. You see, there is this intense scene going on, and every few seconds, the director says cut, and everybody stops and just looks at each other so emotionlessly. And then it starts again. Stops, start, stop, start. And she obviously didn't handle it well. She tried to put up this tough girl act, but the sight of her dead fish broke her. Did I make this awkward? I feel like I can't talk about the core of this show is what if the person in question gets into a parasocial relationship with herself? Essentially, an identity crisis. This identity crisis is something that a lot of famous people go through. They get so much feedback loop from the world around them as their image that you might as well be your image. And now, here is where her problems get even worse. The site that talked about her in extreme detail is getting more and more polarized from her. And ironically, the character she's playing as is the definition of polarized personalities. A character with identity disorder. And now the whole show gets flipped on its head. It turns Mima from this tragic storyteller to this unreliable storyteller. She starts seeing and talking with her pop image, experiences days twice, can't distinguish between the movie characters and reality, and one of the best mind f***s of the show, the part in which she goes, I'm not a pop star, I'm an actress. And then the whole thing gets played out for 5 minutes and then reverses back into, oh, I'm a model. Like, are you playing with us now? But, well, the biggest spoiler of them all, her talent agent is Psycho 2. If you watch the show a second time, some things make more sense now. But still, when you're experiencing it for the first time, You cannot trust anything you're seeing. The scenes after the reveal walk such narrow path between a realistic show and a cliche chase scene from a movie. It hits all the cliches like the killer catches up with her but doesn't shank her immediately, or she screams for help but nobody hears her. And then you get the most iconic scene of the show. But before the truck could hit her, she saves her. And in that moment, the fog disappeared, and I was sure that this was reality. You might be asking, why didn't my suspicions disappear when she lifted her wig? Because you can look at this fight in a more poetic sense, more figuratively. This fight was going on the entire show. A fight for me myself. A pop star or an actress. The more she wanted to get close to the image of an actress, the more she had to repress her pop star image and characteristics. It's something that Jung calls the shadow. All our repressed feelings and characteristics still reside within us, and they are still part of us. Now you see why I called this video a shadow darker than usual. The farther she went from her pop star image, the darker and shadowy it became. And Jung believed that you cannot repress your shadow. It will show its face some way or another. So the farther she went, the harder it came for her, until it literally came to kill her. She did recognize this deeper, shadowy side inside her, but recognition isn't enough. We need to accept it as our own. And I see this scene as her finally accepting her shadow, her pop star image. In a poetic and literal sense, she goes and visits her agent and tells the doctor that she owes her everything. And the show ends with one final jab. No, it's definitely me.